So if we have learned anything from our recent European history, we should avoid by all means any deals similar to Hitler and Chamberlain in 1938. So
Yes. The European Union has decided, of course you'll know, to stop oil deliveries by tanker from Russia, but not through pipeline. Now, what is your response to that? How helpful is that decision?
well, on the one hand, one can always say that it's better this than nothing. On the other hand, we are quite disappointed that the full embargo is not achievable, and we hope that in near future the European Union may revisit its position, because sanctions are fundamentally important. I mean,
Yes.
they cannot be the only factor that will contribute to achieving breakthrough in fighting the Russian invasion, but without it, it's very difficult to have the cumulative effect of many actions, be it military, be it financial, be it economic.
Right. Yes. And when you look at the response of Europe more widely, Germany in particular has been criticised from some quarters for not delivering on its promises of heavy weapons to Ukraine. How big a problem has that been, as far as you're concerned? I've heard reports from Ukraine that the lack of those heavy weapons is becoming serious.
You know, I leave it to my good fellow ambassador of Ukraine in Berlin. When it comes to my interaction with Germany here in the United Nations, I think we have a very solid, perfect interaction and full support by Germany.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
it our action in the General Assembly, or be it our interaction as non-members of Security Council when the Security Council considers agenda items dedicated to Ukraine. So I should not really complain about Germany here in New York. And I have a very good colleague of mine, Antje, and she's a great ambassador.
Well, I mean, more broadly, do you anticipate perhaps coming under pressure from some Western countries, some parts of the alliance in support of Ukraine, to cede territory to Russia as time goes on as part of a possible peace deal?
Of course, you know, I've been asked that kind of question half a dozen of times every day. I just been asked by CBS, for example,
Yeah.
about that. And I would say that, first of all, I have never ever discussed any deals that include ceding territories with the United Nations officials or with any partner here in New York. And neither the Americans, nor the UK, nor Germany, nor France ever approached me and even hinted to the effect of discussing any kind of deal. I mean, we all heard about Kissinger's drivel, and I think that he's a pitiful old person who does not deserve my respect. I mean, because with all this idealizing of him and idolizing him, I mean, he is a person who said back in 1973 that even if the Soviets put Jews in gas chambers, it's not of the American concern.
Yes.
So I can't really respect that kind of person. So let me assure you that I have never ever had any instruction from my government
Yes.
to discuss with whoever in New York City any deal that involves any secession of the territories.
I mean, I hear what you say. Very strong words about Henry Kissinger, a pitiful old fool. But he's not an entirely lonely voice, is he? Even in America, Ambassador, you'll know just in recent days, Donald Trump, the former president, has argued that money spent on arming Ukraine would be better spent on American schools.
Well, what can I say? We have a Democratic administration right now in the White House. It's not very easy to deal with them, but they are very cooperative and they are very cautious, but they are going forward and they approve the right decisions. So I would not spend time commenting on the former president of the United States thoughts on the issue.
Yes, although it's perfectly possible that the Republican Party, in which Donald Trump is a very influential figure, could gain significant ground in the midterm elections in America, just a very few months away, and that could tilt the balance of power and the balance of the argument, Ambassador. You watch American politics, you'll be aware of that.
Look, I left my Washington, D.C. times behind me. I lived there and I worked there for a number of years. I'm happy that I'm now in New York. We have a very great, energetic, young, brilliant ambassador of Ukraine, former finance minister in Washington, D.C. But what I can tell you from my past experience, the United States has always demonstrated a bipartisan support to Ukraine when it comes to the issues of principle.
Yes.
And no matter what are the results of November midterm elections, I'm pretty much sure that the support will still be there, although it may be adjusted. But I'm pretty much sure that fighting the autocracy of Russia and fighting the assault on our common values is a big deal,
Yeah.
both to the Republican and Democratic Party.
Okay, well, let's talk about the present administration. President Biden, just in the last 24 hours or so, has said that he will not send long-range missiles to Ukraine. The supply of arms is continuing, but he will not send long-range missiles. Is that, Ambassador, a setback?
I think that from how I can observe from New York what's going on in Washington, it's an evolution, and it is a progressive evolution. So I think that there will be the right moment to upgrade the kind of missiles they send to Ukraine. But nevertheless, we still appreciate the steady support by the US administration. I think that they are, together with the United Kingdom, are the strongest partners of Ukraine.
Yes.
We should not really undermine their dedication, their genuine dedication to help Ukraine and the Ukrainian people.
Sure. When you say, though, the American position is evolving, what do you mean?
I mean that, the fact how the Ukrainians proved being able to fight back the Russian aggression was quite a surprise, not only to ourselves as a nation, but also to many of our partners. I mean, we can't really compare their expectations right before the invasion, a couple of days after the invasion, and today, 3 months after the invasion.
Yes.
I mean, they now all realize, and I'm sure that London does also realize it, that the Ukrainians are a real solid nation that would never, ever surrender.
Yes.
And we prove that, and we have been proving that daily in the front.
Indeed. Ambassador, tell me, given longer range weapons, longer range missiles, would Ukraine use those missiles to strike at targets in Russia, on Russian territory?
Well, I'm not in charge of military planning, but I can tell you that it doesn't really correspond to our interests. I don't really see why we should. And I have never ever heard any conversations to the effect in the meetings of the government, or I have never had instructions that are even remotely close to this possibility.
Yes. I suppose there would be an argument, maybe a concern, that weapons supplies into Russians on the front line in Ukraine could be struck on Russian territory, or fuel depots, but you say no such thing happens at all.
I don't really like conspiracy theories, plots, assumptions, presumptions, hypotheses, or something like that. I mean, any automobile is a source of danger. So if you treat any car as a source of danger, why should you drive it? I mean, I'm sorry for this primitive analogy,
No, thank you, though. But tell me this, the general view seems to be that Russia is gaining ground in the Donbass. If the Donbass falls to Russia, would Ukraine be ready for an armed standoff that could last for maybe many months or even years?
I think that we will never accept permanent control of any part of the Ukrainian territory by Russia.
Yeah.
So any theory or presumption that we will eventually agree is absolutely wrong. I mean, it's even wrong not only from the military point of view, but it's also wrong from the political point of view. I mean, the Ukrainians as a nation would never accept any government that would cede the control permanently of the Ukrainian territory to any other country. Yeah. It is politically suicidal in Ukraine, and I think that the whole history of independent Ukraine in the course of the last 30 years has proven on several occasions that when Ukrainians are not happy with the government, they are either electing a new government or just remove the government that is corrupt.
Yes. I mean, so the longer the conflict, the war goes on, Ambassador, there must be somewhere in the mind of Ukraine a worry that the resolve of its allies and supporters could weaken. We've seen the German and the French leader in touch very recently with Vladimir Putin. And as the year wears on, there will be more worry in the West and elsewhere about the economy. The economies around the world are deteriorating, and national governments could become more focused on that than on this war. Is that not a worry?
I still hope that the UK public, since I speak to the UK radio, is intelligent enough and educated enough to remember the history. And I would like to refer to the agreement signed by Chamberlain and Hitler in 1938. And I remember a publication that I reread recently of the New York Times that literally said that the world has never been so pregnant with hope. The next day after the agreement between Hitler and Chamberlain was signed.
Yes.
And what happened? In less than 12 months, the Second World War started. So if we have learned anything from our recent European history, we should avoid by all means any deals similar to Hitler and Chamberlain in 1938. So if someone in Europe, be it a politician or government official, sell to the public any idea that public should be happy about any deal between Ukraine and Russia based on secession of territories just to appease Putin, that is very dangerous. That is very irresponsible, because if it let happen, then Putin will reform his army, he will fire his degenerate generals, he will build a new army, and then he will hit again. And then Europe, including the UK, would pay a triple price, and then we all will see how Putin attacks a NATO country. And let us remember that UK, if not a member of the EU now, it is still a member of the NATO.
Yes, that is a very striking message, Ambassador, especially when you consider the experience of Europe, when you consider the experience of Germany and France, who in different respects, will not have forgotten the lessons of the Nazis.
I think I'm afraid that some of the politicians, and I'm not speaking about the head of states, I'm speaking about a certain trend in all of our nations. Some politicians are selectively myopic, and they have this selective topical amnesia. I mean, they tend to turn a blind eye on the most prominent and the most ugly pages of our common history. And it is very irresponsible to let the public believe that something similar should happen in Europe once again.
Yes. And that's a message you feel it's worth reminding the peoples as well as the politicians of countries like Germany and France.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very difficult daily task and responsibility of all responsible government officials and elected officials, be it in London, Berlin, or Paris, and we should really carry on doing our very difficult job every day.